text, what I'm trying to do is to show you something in these words from Scripture that you may have overlooked at first reading, that are mentioned in the passage. And we're talking about verses 42 through to 47. But when I listened to Jeff preach that morning, God opened my eyes to see and my ears to hear what was already there on the page and had been on that page for a very long time. What I heard, you see, what Luke's done here, Luke has recorded a stupendously summary of what housed is the public, visible, audible, and historical giving of God's gift to the world. You see, he gave word and spirit. He gave wind and fire. He gave life and breath. And he did that before thousands of witnesses. He did that in the public square. That's where it took place. God gave what God promised. God delivered, and the world saw and heard. So what is it that Luke reveals? The first thing to note, and we're talking here from verse 42 if you're following along, the first thing to note is the attitude of believers. It's clear God delivered. We also see that God had spoken and that God had given. And now something was required by way of response. What was required? Believers are, you see, our Father in heaven is calling his children. Who are his children? You and I are his children. Our Father in heaven is calling us. Why? Because he wants his family back. Our Father in heaven is calling his children. And his children ought to see, to hear, and to respond to his call. So we come to consider what tension. They committed their all, and they responded with everything they had to the call of God. Luke wrote, verse 42, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Simples, hey. Except that right here is the point that I want to highlight. You see, it's way too easy to head off down the track into an exposition of those gifts and ordinances and religious practices that are mentioned right there. But what if there's more waiting for us in this passage? What if there's something else here that if we dig into it, we're going to find? What if in our desire for instruction regarding correct religious practice, we've actually missed the main point? And I confess I'm being deliberately provocative here because I want you to think about it. I want you to think about what exactly is the main point. Yes, what those first Christians did was right. There's no apostles' teaching. There's no doubt that's the right thing to do. But let me ask you, why did they do what they were doing? Why did they do that? You see, I think they did what Luke has described here for one reason, and for one reason only.